Hey, welcome back to Evilscomics. So big day today, and I'm coming at you with something different today. Um, it's gonna be like maybe a part one on inspiration, videos, that type of thing. But I want to talk to you about one of my favorite people in comics. But this is more, it's a story. So today I want to talk about Jim Lee. I could do top 10 covers. I could do favorite Jim Lee stories. So I'm going at it different. I'm going to tell you my own personal story about when I met Jim Lee and what occurred on this occasion. Now, I have met him 3 times. I've mentioned before I've had previous collections, and some of his most I grew up with, and I'll just start showing, but these are some of my favorite Jim Lee covers, and some of the ones that I've picked up recently. If y'all have been following the channel, thank you, but I have shown these off, but these are some of my favorite Jim Lee covers, and nostalgic. This was one of the series that got me into comics, was that 90s X-Men, and I love this series, but these were specifically some of my favorite, Jim Lee covers. As an artist, I've always loved his art. I mean, he's always had the sex appeal, and I hate to say this in a sexist kind of way, but yeah, I mean, he drew, the women that would, to me, in a very non-revealing but overlies, sexy. I mean, Psylocke is just, I mean, she might have been like why I developed like a secret passion for Asian women. I don't know. But I mean, specifically Sabretooth and some of the pages within, and I'll show you, because some people know the cover or the issue, but some people don't even look inside. But okay, so anyways, back to Jim Lee. I've always loved his art, before, he got involved in Image, and after he got involved in Image, and now that he's with DC, and now I think currently he's like the president or whatever it is over DC Comics, and to me, I love that. And Jim Lee has always been entrenched in comics. He's been with the comic book world. But this is what I was telling you. He's in this like pimp outfit, he's like right here. He's in this like kind of tux with the fur thing going, so you can still kind of tell it's Sabretooth. I love the way it was, just a different way that time that they were drawing Sabretooth, because before then he had that whole hunky-dory 70s outfit, and at that time I wasn't really digging that. But this version of Sabretooth, oh yeah, man, I dug that, like his new outfit and everything. I mean, he was looking fresh. But I've just always liked Jim Lee's art, and yeah, these are some of the 90s stuff, and this is some of my current pickups, but I got some other stuff to show you, because I've been picking up Jim Lee stuff forever, and as much as I can, and sometimes not even knowing it. I love this guy's art, and that's one of my loves into comics, is each comic is your own piece of art. I mean, to me, I would rather go to a museum that had it was just filled with comic covers, because to me, honestly, I think comic covers are so much better than some of the real pieces of art in the world, like at the Van Gogh, and I've been to that. I've been to the Louvre in Paris. I went when I was 20. I've been in the Smithsonian. Here in Houston, we have, I want to say, like 30 something different museums, and I love the museums. I'm a big history nut. So I've seen art, and man, I mean, comics just, I don't know, and it's not, like people have this kiddie idea that comics were made for children, or, I mean, I always tell them, well, I mean, kids don't write them, kids don't buy them. I mean, yeah, some comics are specifically designed, but I mean, even in the 40s, and this is some newer Jim Lee art, but, and I've told y'all before that I went big into the Metal series. I really dug that whole series with Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. But I kind of picked up every Jim Lee cover that I could during. I mean, anytime that he's a part of a big event that I'm attached to, I kind of go, you know, big into some of his art because he's just got better over the years. And I mean, like this cover alone, I love Batman Who Laughs. You talk about one of my favorite characters that they have developed over the years. Man, I want a big Batman Who Laughs. I have him right here. I love Batman Who Laughs. Okay, off topic. So back to Jim Lee. So I think back in like 2018 or whatever it was, here in Houston, we went through Hurricane Harvey, and Jim Lee came back to Houston. And it just happened to be, it was a comic book shop right across the street where I was living, coincidentally. And this had just happened after my comic book collection had been stolen. I had just started collecting comics books again. It killed my soul so much that I almost gave up on comics, because at that point, and the market for comics are now like ridiculous, right? We all know. But back like in 2018, it wasn't really that big yet. But I mean, we're talking about, I had whole runs of the X-Men since the 90s, and Batman, and you know, everything that I was into since I had started collecting comics. I picked them up from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I was an avid collector. One of my favorite birthdays when I was growing up was my mom gave me like $100 to go spend at the comic store, and I went through dollar bins. I picked up current comics. I mean, I went nuts, and I think that was one of my favorite birthdays of my whole life. It was just the fact that she let me go buy what I wanted, and that's what I spent my money on. Okay, so back on Jim Lee, he did come here, and I was first in line at the comic book shop. I was so excited. The 2 times I had met him before, it was very fast. It was just, you know, you paid, he signed the books, and you moved on. I don't even think you were allowed to do a picture. But it was one of, like, the first 2 times I'd met him, it was some of my first signings, and from, like, in the comic book world. I hadn't been to a lot of cons at that time. It was early 90s when I met him, so it was different. I mean, so it was kind of like I allowed it. But okay, now when he comes back in 2018 in the story, so my comic book collection gets stolen. I don't have any Jim Lee comic. I mean, I think at the time when he was coming to Houston, I might have had like 5 or 6 comics at the time. I had really just started, like, finally getting over to my, like, I wouldn't call it depression, but sadness, because my collection had gotten stolen, realizing that I'd have to start over from scratch. Did I want to invest in starting over from scratch? And I did, and that's kind of, if you follow me, I kind of cut ties with Marvel at that time, and I'll go into that one days. But that's why I do buy Marvel, but I'm really, really select with my Marvel titles, because I was a huge Spider-Man fan, and having to go back and try and go back Spider-Man. Oh man, it's getting really expensive nowadays. Okay, back on topic. So Jim Lee was coming. I had like maybe a week's notice, because it was the hurricane. I mean, that's why he came. So I mean, it's not like the hurricane was planned. But during that week, there wasn't too many places open, and I remember running to a half-price bookstore, which is like a used bookstore for those that don't have them. And I ran through their dollar comics, and I was just thinking everything I could Jim Lee. I was pulling up my Google, you know, and he's not really an artist you find in dollar bins, because he's that popular, especially now in the 2000s. You know, it wasn't like back in the 90s. So I mean, scrolling, and I'm looking for X-Men. You know, I was hoping I could. I mean, the half-price books that I went to was very small as it was. Their comic book selection wasn't that big. So I ended up picking up Batman and Robin. I got, I think this is the second issue. Hold on. Yeah, second issue. And you can see this is Jim Lee's signature right there in the silver pen. I also found that was the only single issue I could find. And the other thing, it's also from this is Frank Miller's Batman and Robin, The Boy Wonder. And this is from All-Star Batman and Robin, The Boy Wonder, the trade paperback. It's a collection. It's like the whole, you know, collected story. And it's, you know, y'all know what a trade paperback is. But, you know, signatures right here. It's in the silver. Okay, so I mean, I found, you know, and I was happy just getting these. First off, I had at the time I hadn't read these, so I was just happy to find anything to represent him. I didn't want to show up and not have anything to not get signed. And So I went out, paid, you know, it was probably like maybe $10, you know, and I was like first in line. I think I waited like 12 hours. And I eventually actually gave the first 3 spots ahead of me to people that actually had good Jim Lee stuff. Like this guy had like an X-Men 4 with the first Omega Red, and I was like, man, y'all should go first, because I don't think, you know, I don't know if this is any good. And honestly, all the guys that I showed it to, they were like, oh, that's what you brought, and they were kind of giving me this like man, you should have brought something better type of vibe. And I'm like, I mean, I'd never read these. Like I said, I was just happy to get something with his name, his art, you know, to represent him. So finally, I get up to Jim Lee, right? And we're allowed to get 3 things signed, and I only brought the 2. And I walk up, and I first, you know, I walk up, and, you know, I took a picture, and I'll show y'all that. It'll be my thumbnail, but I took a picture from, you know, a distance away is this way. So I'm walking up. You know, I'm walking up to his table, you know, I'm like, hey, Jim Lee, how's it going? And he didn't really say anything. I put the books down, you know. He takes one look at the books, and he's like, huh! And he just tosses them. He literally tossed them on the ground. Like, there's literally, like, I mean, these were, like, pretty mint condition, but there was, like, a little scuff here, and there was, like, a little scuff here from him tossing them down. Now, I already had them bagged and board and everything, and I had this one in a nicer sleeve. I took it out for this. But he kind of tossed them on the ground, and he was like, I'm not signing those. And he had like a producer guy that was next to him that came with him. He was like at the time an editor or something like that, but he had like an entourage with him. I mean, we're talking about Jim Lee. And he kind of went back and forth with the other guy, and he was like, man, I'm not signing those. He was like, and I guess they're on his list of stuff that he doesn't sign. You know, I do know Todd McFarlane won't, you know, there's certain things that they don't, but as far as I knew, I mean, but I mean, after I've known this is not one of his, like, I mean, if you've known this story and you get to the rooftop scene with Batman and Black Canary, I mean, there's some strange stuff in this book, but I liked it. I mean, he threw a big old fit. He literally threw him down. He had this, like, it held up the line. It was really awkward. Like, I felt so bad. I literally walked out of the line, and as I was walking out of the line, like, he kind of called me back over, and he was like, look, I'll sign the books. He was like, but that's it. I'm not going to take a picture with you. And I was like, man. I was like, and I didn't say that. I mean, I had this, like, you know, and it was before COVID, so no mask or anything. And I tried to keep it as straight faced as I could, you know. And honestly, I was just happy to get the signature. I mean, I'm never planning to sell these or anything. I mean, maybe give them away or something like that, you know, but these are things I cherish, you know. And I literally had to, like, you know, and at the time I was married, my wife was there with me, and she witnessed all this, and just, you know, I mean, we walked out, and she was like, man, that dude was a dick. And, like, you know, this kind of goes into, like, you shouldn't meet your heroes kind of thing. I still love Jim Lee. Like I showed you, I'm still buying his stuff, but he's just, maybe he's not that good of a person. I don't know. Or maybe he just really didn't like that stuff. I don't even know the whole story behind why he wouldn't sign the All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder or Batman. You know, I don't even know if it... I don't know. But, I mean, I have met and got a whole bunch of signatures from different artists. And recently I had mentioned that I got a Ariel Diaz signature. It was the first, like, after COVID it was the first time they had opened up. I went to 2, right, as soon as COVID here in Houston, as soon as they allowed everything to kind of like open back up. I went to go see hers, Ariel Diaz, and I bought 2 different covers of her. I got a sketch. I'll show you in another video. But I also met another guy. I can't remember his name. It's Mark something. I'm bad with the names. Okay, so that's kind of my story. It's just a funny story. I mean, I felt bad, really, because honestly, to this day, I don't know why he didn't like the books. He wouldn't sign them. You know, he's still with DC. He still does Batman. So I don't know the whole story. Maybe y'all could tell me. Maybe somebody really knows the reason why he just doesn't like these books. I mean, I've read them. I didn't think they were bad reads. I'll do a review on this one eventually because I do have a regular version of this book. Hey, I have all the issues. I just thought it was really funny that he just, I mean, he came off like a douche, and he was just mad. I mean, he didn't do that with anybody else because I kind of was in the comic book shop for a little bit longer, and I was shopping, and I kind of like, and he was taking pictures of people, he was signing Funko Pops, and I mean, it just sucked. I mean, sometimes just be careful when you meet, you know, your idols, or, you know, me personally, and a lot of people find it strange. I do use Facebook, I use Instagram, of course, YouTube. I'm not so technologically advanced where I know how to link everything yet, so that, I mean, that's coming. But my Instagram's nothing's, but you'll see why. Same thing with my Facebook. I use Facebook and Instagram kind of the same way I use YouTube. I follow comics, I follow movies, I follow trailers. You know, I keep up with everything nerd related. But so I mean, I'm on those platforms, but you know, and it's like I follow Jim Lee on Twitch, and I follow some of his live feeds on Facebook, and I can say sometimes they really make me mad. He makes people pay for him, and I don't, as famous and as, I don't think we should be paying to like watch him draw like on a YouTube channel. I think that's kind of weird. Now I can understand if you were a brand new supporting artist, or even a like an up and coming, you know, DC artist or something like that. They're still asking for, like, you know, like Ariel Diaz. I had to pay for a signature. I was fine with that. I went to you know, Jim Lee's. I didn't have to pay for it. I just had to have the books. There's different types of signings. Now I didn't get any certification with these books. Houston didn't really do that. I don't know why, but okay. But long story short, that's mine. Maybe you don't. I mean, to me, it was always a funny story. It's the one time that for me, I had a weird altercation with kind of a famous guy. But hey, that's my story. Like, subscribe. Thank y'all for everybody that is. Thank you for all the shout outs, man. Today has been an amazing day, and it's only getting better, and it's not even done.